Welcome back, friends. We are here for another episode of the Whole Life Vitality podcast.
You know your name.
I do. I have words. Man, I can tell it's one of those days.
It's one of those weeks, one of those months, or
That's
even
what I
those
was going to
years.
say. We might even just like spread it out and just be like, it just keeps going. Yeah.
But I'll be there for you.
Aw, when the rain starts to fall. Okay, anyway, back with Adam Brooks. Here we are going to do part 2. We had so many people reach out to us post the religious trauma leaving the Mormon church story.
I mean, we really didn't
podcast.
spend much time on it. What do we have there, like 25 minutes?
It might have been 30.
It's like giving somebody a bite of cake, you know? They're going to want more.
True. It's just like one little sea salt caramel dark chocolate. And you're like, that's just a taste.
Yeah, it's a tease.
Yeah, it's a tease.
It's
like,
a tease.
Why even bother? Okay, so we wouldn't do that to you.
No.
And
we can spend more time on this even.
Totally.
A couple more episodes.
That's
if we
what I
need
was
to.
thinking. Yes. If you get in here and we don't answer all your questions today, you're like, I just have to know more.
Bring
Let us
them up.
know.
Yeah. I mean, we've got a list, but we'll take yours.
Yeah. And I will say post the first one when we got some hate, because, you know, that's the way that it goes.
course.
We like to hear that too. We like to hear all different sides
Good,
of how
bad,
you're feeling.
ugly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let it out.
There's room for all of it.
Yeah.
So I wanted to start today with a question from one of our listeners. She actually wrote in almost immediately, like the day that we went live. And she said, my question would be, what's next? When you left, then what? What was the journey? Where did it lead and why?
That's such an interesting question because in a high demand religion, everything is shaped. Everything has a beginning, a middle, and an end. There's a plan. There's a framework. It's been designed so that it's all encompassing and it holds you in. And having left, I'm exploring. I don't have a big end game goal. I don't have a big plan. I'm discovering what life holds for me without somebody else's shaping.
Well, and I think that it's pretty to think that there's this point that you reach a platform where you're like, I've made it. I'm here. I'm going to be happy for. And I don't think that exists.
No, realistically, even, I mean, in the church, out of the church, everything has had its ups and downs. The difference is that when we were part of the Mormon church, when I had downs, I would assume that I had either done something wrong or I was being especially attacked for some reason or another. And neither of those are very comforting when you're not feeling very well, because either you're at fault and you need to repent and change, or the world is unjust and you don't know why.
So
Why do you get to be attacked by the devil and
Okay,
God doesn't protect you?
that's what I was going to ask. If it was like a spiritual attack or a physical attack,
No.
could it be both?
Yeah, I'm sure it could be both. I mean, look at Old Testament stories. I mean, what sense did Job see in following God as he was being tested by the devil over and over and over again? I think the purpose of that story isn't to increase faith. It's to increase obedience, to set rules. You know, if you're dying in this scenario, it's for your own good.
Okay.
I mean,
so then my question is completely off topic, but I
think
have
we have
to know.
space for that.
Do you think that story is literal?
No, I think that the Bible is the sheep herder's guide to the galaxy, and they did their best to coalesce a lot of stories from nomadic tribes, and each time they did, it gained new faithful followers and lost some of the old ones because it didn't work anymore, and it's just kept doing that over the years.
Seeing the Sheep Herder's Guide to the Galaxy. If you haven't seen The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, you should probably go watch that one. It's a good one. Or read the books. Yes, I will say the books are better, but
Way
the books
better.
are always better. I
Yeah.
mean, I think that's just kind of okay. So then we're just going to launch in with some of our questions here.
Absolutely.
Were there specific teachings or experiences that made you start questioning the faith?
Absolutely, yes. They were different for me and for Zoe. And it was interesting because as she was battling with the teachings that were difficult for her and were pulling her away, she would bring them up to me, and I would do my best to protect my testimony and my faith and not be pulled down with what I saw was dragging her away from the church. But what was difficult for me was the push to perform. The push to bring more people into the church, the push to do more service, the push to take bites out of your own life in order to feed the machine.
Yeah.
And that really pulled at me. I remember I listened to a whole 2-hour stake priesthood meeting on Zoom in 2020, And at the end, I was like, this was a sales pitch. It was a sales meeting.
What were they selling?
They were selling self-sacrifice for the betterment of the community. And they weren't even telling us how the community needed to be bettered. They were saying, break yourself into pieces and go out there and find a way to be better and make things better. It was vague. It was uncomfortable. And frankly, I think it was a bit mean.
Well, if you keep it vague, then that allows them to be right or change their minds.
Or the Holy Spirit can guide you into what specificity you need, I suppose.
So beyond that, those feelings of needing to just give, was there anything specific? I knew you said Zoe was bringing home other things. Do you want to talk about that?
She was actually having trouble with the lack of representation for women in the church.
Yeah.
She didn't like that anytime a women's group was having a meeting, they needed a priesthood holder present and presiding. She didn't like that women weren't able to officiate and that they were treated as second-class citizens. And I had all my reasons as to why I didn't think they were valid. But, in the end, what I came back to for her over and over again, trying to protect myself, is I would say, well, it's God's organization. Nobody gets to choose how it runs but him.
It's not up to us.
It's not up to us. So why should we take beef with the way he's decided to run it? That's just asking for trouble. Who questions God,
So on that note, I feel like I need to tell the story of when I hadn't been going to church for a very long time at this point. Like I said before, I'd stopped practicing around the age of 17, 18 when I moved out. And Zoe had invited me to go to this women's conference with her.
Yeah.
And I think it was my birthday. We were going out for my birthday, girls' day. And she said, I know it's your birthday, but our friend is speaking at this women's conference. And do you want to just go do this first? And then we'll go do your other stuff. And I was like, sure. She's our friend. We'll go support her. And we went to this conference, and our friend did a great job.
He always does.
It was enjoyable to watch her and to hear what she had to say. She's a therapist, and she kind of approached everything from that perspective, which was nice.
And she's eloquent.
Yeah, totally.
Of course she's going to do a great job.
And we got to the end of her talk or sharing, and we thought we were going to move on to the luncheon portion of the event. It's a women's conference. That was the plan. And everything got kind of quiet. And then this man stood up and he said, okay, well, I'm not really sure what I'm supposed to be doing here, but they told me that I need to be here, and so let's just do this. And he came down off of the platform and stood down lower and got a whiteboard.
Yeah, that tracks.
And he started explaining to us the plan of salvation.
Most basic doctrine of the gospel.
Yeah, so what we learned as small children and then had reiterated over and over and over again. I mean, at that point, I hadn't been practicing in over 15 years, and I could have explained the plan of salvation.
It's pretty basic.
I looked at Zoe and I said, what is happening?
Why is he mansplaining the plan of salvation?
One, why did he show up? Two, why did he show up unprepared?
Why are you pretending what he's giving you has value?
Yes. So I looked at her and she looked at me, and we kind of shared that moment. And I said, you want to go get some lunch? And she was like, yep. And we left. And
well done.
I think that in that moment, it was one of those, if this is how church wants to do it, fine. But I don't want to do it that way.
Why would you?
I don't want to be a part of that.
Useless information being mansplained.
Totally. So I could see how maybe that could have been a touch of a little bit. All right. What role did fear play in your decision to stay or leave?
Oh, I felt so much fear around leaving. Keeping me there.
Yeah.
So I was just terrified that everything in my life would fall apart. My safety nets would disappear. I would lose my social crowd. I would lose my tribe, my people. I would lose family. I was afraid for a long time that I would find out later that I was wrong and I should have stayed, and I would regret it.
And there would be no going back.
I mean, who knows what mistakes I would make on my way out that would lead me to return. And
the prodigal son.
yeah, and seeing each of those fears and keeping space for them and addressing them and exploring them, they each kind of dissipated in their own way on their own. I don't think I had to actively talk my way through them or work past them. I would just see them and pay attention for a little bit. I have this fear that if I'm not part of the church, then one day when I struggle the most, there won't be an organization there to back me and to catch me if I fall financially or emotionally or or nobody's going to help me move, or, if I ever need help paying my rent, who's going to help me pay my rent? Ultimately, what I came back to was, without pretending the church is taking care of me, I just go on taking care of myself.
That's what you were doing before anyway.
It is. It's what I was doing before anyway. And in reality, I took better care of myself after I left because I wasn't trying to split my attention between myself and everyone the church said I needed to take care of.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had a lot more resources at my disposal, a lot more time and money and energy, and I took better care of myself and better care of my children and better care of my wife because I wasn't trying to keep an organization uplifted and edified and strengthened.
Well, and from the perspective of not someone who was ever a dad, but somebody who had a dad who had big responsibilities
Right.
in this same organization, I did not know our dad as a teenager.
How could we? He
Because-
was constantly busy.
And
Early mornings, late nights,
sure,
all day
working,
Sundays.
yeah, working hard to provide for us, but then I would say at least a 40-hour-a-week job on top of providing to also provide for the church.
Yeah, and it's not uncommon for the church to ask for 40 to 60 hours a week. I was on Reddit the other day where someone came into, I think it was the ex-Mormon subreddit, and they said, the thing that made me leave was the church asked me to run the Pathways program in my region. And
Wow.
the initial pitch was, we just need you a few hours one night a week. And then as they started to dig further into it, it was a few hours several nights a week, plus grading papers and writing proposals and counseling with individuals and doing interviews and structuring organizational management. It was at least 40 hours a week of responsibility they were being asked to take on. But the initial pitch was a few hours one night a week, and everything else was hidden behind that. And they said, this is absurd.
Yeah.
There's no way I can give this to anyone, let alone an organization that doesn't give back.
Right. And a lot of organizations ask for people to fill those types of roles, but it's a job. You're doing that as your full-time job and you're getting a
Right.
salary for it instead of coming in and saying, put everything else in your life on hold.
Of course.
So make sure you take care of your family.
Do the gymnastics.
Provide them by having a full-time job and then provide for the church by creating a full-time job here, but don't let that pull away from your family or your other job where you're providing.
I don't know if you remember, but when the stake high counselor came to extend the calling to Dad for his branch president calling, he told the entire family, this is going to be such a time-intensive calling that you are all going to need to pitch in and be supportive. So he let us know right off the bat, you're losing a parent for the foreseeable future, and it's your job to make up that lack.
And it's not, this went on, I mean, I don't actually remember how long
I think
he
it was
was
2
in
or
it.
3 years.
It was from the time I was probably 14, I think, until after I moved out.
Yeah, it was a
So
while.
it seemed like a while, but I couldn't exactly tell you what year it was that he started doing that. It was pivotal time for a lot of us,
And I think it burned everybody out.
including him.
Yeah.
What are some of the hardest myths or internalized beliefs to unlearn?
The strongest myth that I believed more than anything else was that the Holy Spirit would speak to me in my mind and in my heart and tell me what I should do. And it was really hard to let that go because I had relied on what I suppose now had developed into an intuition of sorts for years to let me know, even in work situation, how do I go about working on this? How do I go about fixing this problem? And in family and counseling friends and taking care of my children, I relied on that intuition all the time. And when I thought I was leaving the church, I wondered if I would lose that. And that was one of my tests. I said, okay, well, if I'm not worthy of the Holy Spirit, then this intuition will go away. And it was really scary to try that. But when I did things that I knew would alienate me from the Holy Spirit's guidance based on my entire life of teachings. And then I still had that intuition. And it was really hard at first to give that up and say, okay, well, then this isn't the Holy Spirit. This must be my own intellect. But eventually I came to terms with the fact that I still had good things to tell my children, and I still had smart thoughts about how to fix problems with work, and I still had guidance for friends and family. And it didn't come from God because I made sure I couldn't receive it from God.
Isn't that so funny? I think I went through something similar where I really kind of pushed the boundaries of what I thought would allow me to be worthy of God's love and God's attention. And I came to a slightly different conclusion, but I feel like it's really, really similar in that I got to a point where I was like, hang on, this being or power or whatever is out there, whatever you choose to believe, I do see it as the universe or a bigger energy or God or whatever you want to call it. Lots of names in my head. And I don't think that there's so much differentiation in good or bad within that space. I look at it from the perspective of I'm a parent with my children and I see my children, and if they do something I don't like, I'm not going to say, I'm not going to feed you today.
Right. Or you won't be my beloved child today because you messed up.
Yeah. I'm like, I love you no matter what. I tell my kids all the time, there's literally nothing you could do to make me stop loving you. Nothing. Like, I am here for you no matter what. So either that's how it is and God loves us no matter what, or there's something else out there and it wasn't the case all along. That's kind of what I came to, was this particular church, this particular organization that is telling me that I have to be a certain way in order to be loved and cared for and receive inspiration. I personally believe that whatever's out there loves me regardless and loves me whether or not I abide by those particular boundaries.
Makes sense.
So that was my own mental gymnastics to get there. And then when I landed there, I was like, okay, basically I'm worthy of love either way.
Okay. I think that's a powerful place to live.
Yeah, it was good for me. I wanted to jump back to fear really quickly because our older sister, Hope, is no longer with us. But before
she passed 3 years?
4
years ago
2021.
now. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, time passes.
Time passes. It is only maybe a little easier. But before she passed, she wasn't sick. It was kind of sudden. The year before she passed, I was there having a conversation with her, and we were actually talking about religion. We were talking about the church and kind of how she felt about the guidelines and boundaries that she was choosing to uphold and not uphold. And I asked her, why do you still go?
Why?
Yeah, you're doing so many things that they say not to do. You're choosing to only believe bits and pieces. So why still be in it? And she said she had previously lost a child. And she said, if I don't keep going, I'll never get to see my baby again.
You know, when we were missionaries, we were encouraged to find people who had had big life changes, losing someone, having a new baby, things that you would be afraid to lose, and teach them, because they would be more susceptible to our teachings.
How would you say it then?
More open.
Open.
I think it's the same thing.
I think it's the same thing.
Yeah, but now I see that they would be more susceptible to teachings, and they would be more susceptible to the love bombing that comes from the organization. And then you tie that to, if you leave, you have none of this. You don't have the comfort of the teachings. You don't have the support of the people. And fear plays a major role in staying with high demand organizations in general.
Fear is a powerful tool. And I mean, I see it used every day in marketing all over the world. Fear is a powerful tool. And love, I wish it was more powerful, because if we could just lead with that, like, yes, you're loved and you can have access to whatever you need.
It seems like love has a shorter shelf life.
People tend to not believe it.
Well, it's easy for fear to undo it, for hardship to undo it, for difficulty to undo it. And love needs regular reinforcement, regular encouragement, regular gifts of love.
It's interesting that our brains are so negative biased.
Oh, yeah.
Because you're right. We do need that constant reminder that we're loved. But if you get the thought in your head that somebody doesn't like you, or somebody's mad at you, or somebody's talking about you behind your back, you don't need any confirmation for that.
Or at least we don't.
Okay, that's true.
Wired different.
Got it all. What boundaries did you have to set that felt uncomfortable at first, but were necessary for healing?
So many new boundaries.
So many.
I had to set a boundary that church members weren't allowed to come and preach in my home.
Oh, okay.
Which was really different, because prior to that, missionaries would come and teach us and teach our kids, and we would talk about fundamental teachings that were comforting and familiar and valuable in that social circle. And when friends came over to hang out, we would often tie in some sort of religious teaching with our get-togethers. that was a boundary that was very strongly enforced.
I'm having so many flashbacks right now.
Oh, so many times that we had you over to the house and had some sort of religious teaching.
It's just a different time.
It was a whole different life, but that was an essential part of it. Reinforcing the dogma was an essential part of the culture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So speaking of boundaries with friends or family members, were there boundaries that you needed to set when it came to not that you can't talk to me about this thing anymore, but you're not going to convince me of this thing anymore?
I think the only place I really had to set those boundaries, and I didn't set them as hard and set, I'm not talking about this or I'm not doing this kind of conversation, was with Dad. We sat down and had a very long conversation where he tried to testify of the fundamentals of the Mormon gospel. And I walked with him through it and said, I know this.
Yeah.
Not only do I know it, I've taught.
If we take exams on this, I will ace it.
I would. And in the end, he was trying to testify to me of the truthfulness of what he was teaching. And I said, I know what you know, and I know more than that now.
Yeah.
And what I know more than that undoes what you know. And so as much as you testify that you know this is true, I know it is false. I know that every bit of it is not true. And that was kind of a hard and fast boundary that I set in that conversation. And we haven't gone back to revisit gospel topics since then. But it was definitely a hard boundary that I set where I said, I'm not going to pretend that what you're saying has value anymore. These teachings aren't true and they're not valuable and they're not helpful. And I'm not going to pretend it for the sake of our relationship.
Well, and what creates a healthy relationship is the mutual respect of allowing both person to have their opinion and be okay with it. It doesn't define who that person is.
And as often as possible, acknowledging and living in what's real.
How has your definition of quote unquote God, spirituality, or truth evolved?
Why don't you start on this one? Because mine's pretty basic. It's basically just that I live in the here and now, and I don't look for more than what I can see, feel, hear, taste, etc. If what I see is tangible and presentable, then I accept that it's real. And if it's not, then I don't spend much time on it.
Okay, there you go. So for me, I guess it has definitely evolved over the last 20 years or so. I think I probably started out thinking, I don't know, I was a teenager. I was like, who cares?
Let's go to a concert.
I was like, who cares? If I was in trouble, if I was feeling scared, then I would pray, you know. But I wasn't necessarily in a space of right and wrong, I guess, at that point. Everything felt a little bit more fluid, or if I started to think too much about right and wrong, then it was, oh no, I'm doing it wrong.
Right.
Right. And then, let's see, I went from that into astrology. And I cannot tell you how many hours I spent in Barnes & Noble just with all these astrology books laid out in front of me. People are so sweet. I would go in there and just sit on the floor and read for hours. And nobody ever bugged me. It was like a library. They just don't even care that I didn't ever buy any books.
It is a culture all its own with rules all its own.
Right?
Yeah, bookstores, man.
Yes.
They hit different.
I care. They would just
walk
step over
around
me.
you.
Yes.
If they needed a book behind you, they'd probably glance and try and furtively get your attention so they could get to the book and apologize for disturbing you.
Yep. So I got into astrology, and from there got into more of the energetic nature of things. I think I was probably, maybe 19, 20 years old when that movie, What the Bleep Do We Know, came out. Or maybe around The Secret. Do you remember that one? Did you see either one of those?
I never saw either of those.
Okay, so they're basically about the metaphysical and about energy and about things that are bigger in the world. You know, the energy behind our thoughts, behind our feelings, behind the way that our body works, behind the world and the plants and the animals, and that same energy living inside all of us. And that broadened my mind even more. And I was like, okay, this is really cool. Like, there's so much out there. The clothes that I put on my body have energy. The carpet that I'm standing on has energy. The
Feng shui.
Sure. Yeah. Feng shui. I never got big into feng shui, but I think the same kind of idea, like the way that you set up a room has energy.
I mean, what is feng shui but someone trying to make observations and then establish rules around it?
There you go. Well, maybe we just all really like rules.
Oh, I think
Maybe.
Trying to make sense of things is very human.
Yeah.
Yeah, trying to find commonalities amongst scenarios that can be coalesced into a rule is very human.
Yeah, totally. So that opened my mind to something different to allow it all to expand a little bit more. And then I actually did a podcast with Rachel Hansen that will go up here at some point. You guys are going to love her. She's amazing. She opened my eyes to a different level of spirituality that had to do with this like spiritual healing, kind of a energetic,
Like Reiki?
kind of like Reiki, but less hands-on, more visualization.
Oh, okay.
And
because intention can make changes in a metaphysical.
yes,
Okay.
that is the idea. And so she introduced me to that, and I started getting a little bit deeper into all of this energetic side of things. And in the process of doing that, the concept of God or this greater power or the universe, or however you want to say it, it always kind of was very fluid for me, because I was like, if there was a big bang, where'd the big bang come from? Came from energy, came from somewhere, right?
Okay.
If there was a God that created heaven and earth and, put us all in it, that energy came from somewhere. All of these things, everything starts from something. And then it continues to grow from that same energetic something. So I guess I just haven't ruled anything out. I think at this point, I'm like, if it feels good, if it feels like love and hope and expansion, then I'm kind of here for it.
Right on. Yeah,
So-
why not? I mean, if it benefits you, if it's wholesome, if it's
Yeah.
empowering, then
Keep what serves you and dump the rest.
sort through what works. Because,
Yeah.
I mean, if as humans we try and make rules out of observations, then perhaps they build on each other until they become an organization of high demand. And maybe some of those rules along the way only served a small group. And you just drop those and keep going.
Well, and I have heard that a really phenomenal way to create a huge organization and make a whole lot of money is to start a religion.
I read recently, and I don't know how accurate it is, the founder of chiropractic medicine tried to make it a religion first.
Oh, I could have seen that going somewhere.
Yeah.
I mean, people who are into chiropractic often get very religious about it.
Yeah.
So, okay, cool. Actually, I do see a chiropractor. Okay.
They're
What does authenticity look like for you now compared to when you were trying to be quote unquote worthy?
Ooh, that is good. I pretended that I cared about everyone. I pretended that I loved everyone. I pretended that my life was worthless unless it was in the service of something greater. I pretended that there was a God and all the attendant teachings that went with it. And all of those pretends fell apart. And I started instead looking around and observing for myself, if I'm not actively making something real, then what exists? And authenticity for me looks a lot more like that. It's a lot more observational. It's a lot more curious. It's a lot more open and less judgmental, because there are things I don't know and I'd like to see them.
Meditation is not just sitting in complete silence and blackness. Meditation is allowing your thoughts to come up and be curious about them. And I was like, it really changes how you look at yourself.
Well, and then you're not closing your eyes and fighting your own thoughts.
Yep.
You're closing your eyes and observing yourself.
Yep. And that's authenticity.
I hope so.
To observe yourself and to say, oh, this is who I am, this is where I am, this is what I'm doing, as opposed to gaslighting yourself every time you have a thought.
Yeah, gaslighting, man.
Did you experience religious gaslighting?
So
and
much.
how did you learn to trust your own intuition?
The most famous gaslighting sentence that I heard so often was, "That wasn't my experience." Talk about the rampant sexual abuse that goes on in the Mormon church.
Yep.
And someone who hasn't suffered it will protect their feelings and their faith by saying, well, that wasn't my experience.
Yep.
Talk about the rampant racism that goes on in the Mormon church, and someone who has not experienced it will say, that wasn't my experience.
Okay.
I mean, the fact of the matter is that you don't have to experience something for it to be real. Hearing about somebody else's experience should color what you think of an organization. Finding out that people are routinely protected by the church and their lawyers after they sexually abuse children as part of their church experience should color the way you look at the organization. It's a place that protects abusers and stands up for them, and a place that punishes victims.
And I agree with that wholeheartedly because I experienced that.
Right.
And I had friends that experienced that firsthand and saw this whole thing play out.
Right.
And otherwise, and I think that that's part of the problem. I hate to use the word brainwashing, but that's kind of what it is.
Oh, it absolutely.
The brainwashing is so thorough that anytime that you start to think,
Those are just people acting as imperfect beings.
we're probably just mad at someone. Someone probably hurt their feelings.
Oh, geez. And you blame it on the victim again.
Yes.
Because that's what the organization does.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it's really hard because telling someone that what they're experiencing isn't correct is a very common tactic in the Mormon church. And I experienced it and unfortunately I did it.
And on that note, we actually have another comment from a listener that I wanted to address. And actually, you did already reply to this comment on YouTube where it was left. But they said, you choose to be offended. I say, repent relentlessly and forgive completely. It is not about demand, but the truth. Time to read the Book of Mormon, boys and girls.
So first, I think it's interesting to note that this person is telling us that if we would just read the Book of Mormon, we would believe what they believe.
Yeah.
I read the Book of Mormon front to back, cover to cover many times.
Same.
The Pearl of Great Price as well, the New Testament, the Old Testament. I have worked my way through all of those scriptures relentlessly, including with other people's observations on them, reading books that go along with it. And
Study guides.
And in the end, all of that led to my lack of belief in it. And so I don't think reading more of it is going to bring me any closer to this person. But they take what I see as a very common approach in the Mormon church to aggrandize themselves while simultaneously trying to beat someone into religious submission. I've done it myself. When I was a Mormon missionary, it was very common for me to try and call someone to repentance because of their wrongdoings. And their wrongdoings were to believe differently from me. And rather than look at them with curiosity and say, what is it about your life that has value? I would look at them with condemnation and say, your life is different from mine. You must be wrong. This person strongly invested in the church, and I understand that.
Yeah.
And I see where they're coming from with that, but I don't think that following their advice and actively choosing not to be offended by such a lousy organization would do me any good.
Well, and if someone is abusing you, if someone is slapping you around, punching you, whatever, they are putting their hands on you, they are abusing you, and you tell someone else about it, and their response is, well, choose to see it differently.
Yeah, you're choosing to be bothered by this action.
You're choosing to think that they're hurting you when really they're not. And I'm not saying that's specifically what's happening, but
maybe look for the purpose in what they're doing.
actually, if you would just stop making them upset, you'd probably be fine.
Or maybe you haven't learned the lesson you're supposed to learn yet.
What it is.
The beatings will continue until morale improves.
All the mental gymnastics that have to go into making it make sense. If something is hurting you, it is hurting you.
That's real.
Bottom line.
Yeah, and it's verifiable and it's visible.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this position they're taking, repent, forgive, they're simultaneously aggrandizing themselves and strengthening their position and their belief while condemning someone else. It's classic us versus them. It's classic Mormon church.
I'm not holding grudges.
Right.
I don't feel like there's anything that I need to forgive. I left and I'm like, well, that didn't work for me. That doesn't mean I'm not going to tell other people. Like,
No, it kind of makes sense to tell someone if something's poison.
eat.
Don't food.
Exactly.
It's not good for you.
That chicken nugget gave me food poisoning. Wouldn't recommend.
How many times did Jeff go back to Taco Bell before using the coupons they sent him after he got food poisoning?
Are there any books, people, or practices that helped you reclaim your inner voice?
You know, I really appreciate Richard Dawkins.
Okay.
He's big into atheism. One of his books was How Religion Ruins Everything. And he goes through historically to look at the effects of religion on society and humanity. And I really appreciate it. He's very sensible. It's not super angry or abusive. It's just, this is how life was and then what religion did to it.
Does he look at religion and say, why are you the way you are?
Why are you the way you are?
Every time I choose to do something, you make it not that way.
Thank you, The Office.
Yes, that's right. That's really interesting. I actually found a lot of freedom in reading devotionals, reading things that were not from Mormon doctrine, because I had such a narrow idea of what love was, of what was acceptable, of what the church was or God was or community was. And by opening that and saying, hang on, these people, the Mormons said these people were wrong.
Right.
They said that they didn't know what they're doing, but they're saying the same thing.
But there's...
Preaching love.
Did you ever have to do mental gymnastics to square away the chicken soup books that you liked with the Mormon teachings?
Interesting.
Yeah, chicken soup for so many souls.
That is so funny. I think in my head as a teenager reading them, in my head they were all fiction.
Oh, I see. You were enjoying them for the feels.
Yeah.
Oh.
It's really interesting because when I was probably 14, I read this book. It was called The Inside Outside Beauty Book. And it was by a Mormon author, sold in the Mormon bookstore. And so I was allowed to read it.
It must be approved.
Right. And
Yeah.
so I read it cover to cover. And it was about this woman who teaches other women how to be beauty queens, how to win, like Miss America, right? And I was 14, and man, I just completely taken. I was
Ready for that pageant circuit.
I was ready for everything she had to offer. And she said, the major problem is I tell these people what to do, and they go home and they take their homework and they don't do it, and they show up for the pageant, and I'm like, you're still 10 pounds overweight. You didn't do what I said to do.
Oh, damn.
So what did I do at 14 years old? I wrote to this woman. I said, thank you so much. This is who I am. I really loved your book. And I got a packet back in the mail from her saying, great, here's your homework. This is what you need to do. And it was a food log.
Oh.
Without instruction.
Here's your own eating disorder.
Exactly.
Very own, from me to you.
And so I went to our mom and I said, okay, so without any backstory at all and no questions were asked, I said, so how do you lose weight? And she said, well, you consume fewer calories than you burn. And I said, okay, that sounds like simple math to me. So I started writing down every calorie that I ate, which meant that if 2 pieces of bread were 120 calories, I needed to burn 120 calories.
Oh, nobody told you about base metabolic rates.
Nope. Okay.
Wow.
Nobody told me that my body was burning energy just existing.
Operating at probably a 1,200 calorie a day deficit at least.
Yes. So basically I started living on nothing.
You couldn't just burn everything, so you had to eat less.
I tried. I ran a lot. I
Yeah.
danced a lot. I did lots of workout videos. But I will tell you, it's really hard to burn every calorie that you eat.
It is.
And so there were days that I felt like I was majorly failing. And you know what? I lost a lot of weight. And I built myself this very handy dandy little eating disorder that took me a decade to recover from, or more.
Damn.
Okay, it was more. But
Yeah.
it just because something was sanctioned by the church, and I'm sure they didn't realize that they were actively promoting eating disorders.
If they did or didn't, would they care? It
I
was
have
going
no
out to
idea.
women.
I have no idea.
I mean, they're real picky about what men read.
But it was one of those moments where I read these chicken soup books and those were fiction, but I read this book and it was doctrine.
Yeah, it probably hit just like all the other disordered reading that
Oh
we did.
my goodness. Well, that was kind of a nice little rabbit trail. Let's move on to the next one.
All right.
How do you differentiate between healthy community and another high demand system now?
So I watch for a few signs. Love bombing at the beginning is a really big one. If I show up and I'm instantly a celebrity, then I'll wonder who was the last celebrity and where they are now. If I wonder why I'm such a celebrity and it doesn't quite seem to make sense, it just feels like I'm being pitched and they're trying to get me to commit, you know,
Oh.
because I know for myself that I appreciate that love bombing and I'll chase it for a long time.
Oh, it hits that dopamine so
Yeah,
hard.
and I'll end up really committing myself to an organization if they start out that way. So that's something I watch for
That's a red
initially.
flag.
Yeah, big red flag. Another is coercive control. You know, if people have to dress a certain way or act a certain way or talk a certain way or use or don't use certain words, then that's a big red flag for me. If people have to give to an organization in order to remain in good standing, either financially or with time or energy, then that's something that I see standing out as a big red flag.
Yeah.
There are a lot of really red flaggy organizations I've found so far.
I have been to quite a few churches now, and we've tried all sorts of different churches. And the ones that I feel myself being the most comfortable at are the ones that don't pass around a collection plate.
Of course.
That don't pound into you that you need to give your 10%, but that say, here are opportunities to give if you want to.
Yeah.
And drop it.
I think it would be really cool for someone to say, this is our budget and this is where it's going. And if you'd like to contribute, mark off where you'd like your money to go.
Right.
If you want to contribute to helping people who are home, put it in this area and we'll send it there and we'll show you where it goes and what it does. But I don't think that's what organizations like that do.
I do have a friend who's a pastor, and he says, give of your time, give of your resources, but give where you feel inclined to give. He's not saying only give to my church. And he's like, if you see someone in need, help them out. If you see somebody who you want to help them out.
Altruism track.
Just give where you feel inclined to give. And giving makes other people feel good.
Sure.
So
it's a good drug.
See, I like
good dopamine.
I like to chase the love, man.
Yeah.
Chase the love. All right. What role has therapy, journaling, or creative expression played in your recovery?
Journaling is such a powerful way to meditate.
Yep.
Because like you were saying earlier, you take out the thoughts that are rolling around in your brain over and over and over again, and you put them on paper and you examine them.
You get curious about it.
And you can't help but examine them as they come out of your fingers. And sometimes you pour pain and anguish into a page, and you pour excitement and elation into the page. But either way, you take the thing that's circling and you see it and you live with it. And then it can go somewhere else, or it can reshape, or it can redefine, and it can be something different.
Yeah, and there's a lot of that came out for me post religious trauma. You know, post leaving that, all the shame that I had surrounding, well, let's be fair, most anything that I did.
Right.
If it wasn't directly in line with church guidelines. And I'm pretty stubborn, and I'm pretty rebellious, and I don't much like rules. And so I push back on things for sure. And I want to know why. I want to know why. And if I agree with it, then I'm like, okay, that makes sense. I'll do it. And if I don't agree with it, then I just push harder.
Then you're like, no, not that.
Right. But even within that, there was that thought in the back of my head, what if I'm wrong?
Oh, yeah.
What if I'm wrong? And then the shame spiral begins.
Well, and I think it's a testament to the power of the indoctrination that you can self-gaslight so easily.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Because that is a skill that is drilled in.
That's very true.
Yeah.
I mean, you start feeding people information from the time they're born.
Right.
And the brain is a sponge at that point. Everything just gets absorbed, not questioned, not argued with in any way,
no,
just
rolls
absorbed.
right past critical thinking.
Exactly. And I mean, now here I am in my 40s, and I remember every lyric to every song I learned in primer at church as a kid, all of them. Okay.
And I think they talk about it as if it's some sort of struggle, because they have trouble getting people to think beyond basic doctrine in a conversational setting in a class. But at the same time, it's so encouraged, because if you start to think critically about a point and it doesn't fit, doesn't make sense, maybe there's inconsistencies, then they'll either turn to gaslighting. Well, you're seeing it the wrong way. You're looking at it the wrong way. You're the problem here. Or they'll redirect to doctrine that does make sense. Well, don't worry about that. Think about this.
Mm-hmm.
And
throw out the baby with the bathwater.
I've known people who have come away from the Mormon church not just unable to critically think about religion, but unable to think critically about anything.
Yeah.
It's a skill that they tamped down in order to maintain their position there, and had to relearn in order to more or less survive in the outside world, because they had to say, well, someone's telling me this is true. Can I examine that? And if it is true, then what do I do? And if it's not true, then what do I do? And what if they're lying to me? And why are they telling me this? Learning critical thinking outside of the Mormon church is a real thing.
Because the truth is, everything's not so black and white.
No.
Nothing.
There's a whole spectrum of color in the world that religion oftentimes bypasses.
One thing that you said that I wanted to touch on was using the term the church, because there are so many churches in this. I bring that up because I have actually had friends who were not raised Mormon, but when I used that term, the church, they were like, wait, hang on. And they took offense. And I thought,
they're like, the church?
Because that is how we were taught. That it is the only church.
Well, because the Mormon church is in its own eyes the true church of Jesus Christ that was restored in its fullness. And other churches are either the great and abominable church that fights against the Mormon church, or they're just mistaken organizations led by imperfect beings.
Wow.
I know.
It's hard to be right all the time.
The pure arrogance. It was.
Yeah.
Let me say, as someone who lived the Mormon righteous life for the better part of 35 years, it was so difficult to be right all the time.
And the fear of getting something wrong has got to just plague you constantly.
Yeah, and then you pray it away.
And you pray away.
Yeah, you turn to God in those moments of fear.
Stroke your ego, move on.
Listen to your intuition.
Wow. Okay. On that note, how do you handle conversations with people who are still in the faith-based, especially those you love?
You know, it comes up less and less. And I think a lot of it has to do with the people I talk to not wanting to engage. I don't bring it up much and they don't bring it up much. I don't think they want to hear what I have to say about the Mormon Church. And I think there's some danger for them in that conversation. And they're not interested in trying to convert me. And I'm not interested in trying to destroy what's leading to their happiness right now.
Is there still room for relationship?
You know, I feel like it drifts, but there's probably more room there than I see immediately. I'm not very good at maintaining a lot of relationships. I have a few close friends and family that I stay tight with, and everyone else kind of floats in and out and comes and goes. But I've found a lot of value in trying to see past the doctrine that they talk about to see what might have some sort of redeeming value in it, and try and be curious about them, and also in dismissing nonsense.
All right.
Yeah, someone might say, guess what? I'm so excited because I'm going to be baptized in a week. And I might say, I'm so glad for you.
Yeah.
That's wonderful.
You're happy. Yeah.
And at the same time, respond to the feelings in me that say,
run for your life.
They're about to do something that isn't going to add positively to their life and is going to bind them further to an abusive organization.
They don't know.
Because it's not my life, and I can stay connected to someone who is living their own life.
And you have to let everyone come to their own conclusions.
Yeah, in their own time and in their own way.
I mean, you and I raised very similarly, close in age, and we have led very different lives, had very different journeys, came to our own conclusions that are not the same.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
Yeah. I think there's room in the world for us to think differently and feel differently.
Mutual respect, man. What would you tell your younger self on the day you started questioning?
I have this tattoo that says, it doesn't matter. And I think I would start with that. None of it matters. The staying in doesn't matter. Getting out doesn't matter. Taking the organization apart doesn't matter. What does matter is finding peace and strength and comfort and illness. And if that's not in the organization, then the organization doesn't matter. Let it go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Take what serves you.
Yeah.
And I think that maybe that's what Hope was saying when I asked her why she was still in it. Because for me, when I asked that question, I was still in that black and white space of, well, if you don't believe it's completely true, then why are you even here? And she was saying...
And she was nuanced.
On the off chance that it is the only way to see my child.
Investment to keep a toe in.
Then I'm going to keep doing the bare minimum of what I need to do to maintain that relationship so that I can see my kid.
That fear of telling someone that the only way you can live with someone you love after this life is to do what I say is such a mean fear. Such a mean fear to give to anyone. And it's used and abused over and over again.
Have there been moments of peace or freedom that reminded you why this path was worth it?
More and more.
You're like, every damned.
And some of them were naturally occurring, and some of them were drug induced, and some of them were alcohol induced, and some of them were just bliss being with people I love who love me back. And yeah, there is an entire life of peace to be had outside of the organization. Granted, it's not black and white.
Yeah.
There's plenty of nuance, there's plenty of gray, there's plenty of color. Sometimes isn't comfortable, but now more and more I see all of that as a whole instead of thinking that some of it belongs and some of it doesn't.
Right.
Because in the church, the good belonged and the bad was out of place. And there must be something wrong with me or wrong with the world if the bad was out of place.
I have so much respect for people who stay within the organization and find that nuance, and also people who leave and find the nuance and can let go of that hurt. Like there's just so much on both sides, so much freedom on both sides. I think it's just amazing to be able to give yourself the space to exist without so much shame.
There's real power in curiosity. There's real power in acceptance, real power in understanding.
What do you want people to know about religious trauma that they might not understand?
Trauma is trauma, be it heartbreak or broken bones or brain injuries. It's real. The pain is real. The time to recover from it is real. The daily effect of feeling it is real. Maybe lack of energy, maybe preoccupation, maybe fear, maybe judgment, maybe anger. All of it is real. And understanding that perhaps can lead to treating someone as if what they're feeling and doing is valid.
Yeah. And if you treat people like human beings, and if they're saying they're feeling something, then they're feeling it.
Maybe believe.
Maybe just believe people when they talk to you. For someone who's listening, who's still inside a high demand religion and afraid to leave, what would you say to them?
Worth it to get out. It's worth it to reshape your life to something more peaceful for you.
Yeah. Follow your bliss. And if it's there, then I hope that you find your bliss. And if it's somewhere else, then I hope you find it there too.
And if you can draw strength from anything we've said to help you leave, then I'll feel like that was really well shared on my part, because it's important to leave what hurts us and be in what builds us.
Yeah. If you have questions or you feel like you need support, or you were triggered by this conversation in one way or the other, please reach out. We'd love to hear from you.
Love, curiosity, anger.
We're open to it.
And we're happy for it.
Because I think that is one thing that I got as I lived a more nuanced life, is not being afraid of all of those other emotions.
Right. Yeah, there's room for them. Spice is spice.
Yeah, spice is spice. I know you probably have a million questions now that we have dropped all this in. So if you do, please reach out. We can do a part 3. Actually, we're already going to do a part 3. We could do a part 4.
We can keep this conversation going.
We can keep it going.
It's a space I'm happy to stay in.
Yeah, it is definitely something that we have shared and have a lot of experience with, and have a lot of grace for ourselves and to give you with it. So make sure you like, subscribe, follow, drop your comments, share it with a friend.
Definitely share it with a friend.
Yeah.
There are probably more people out there who need help in this than we realize.
Oh, that is so true. If you could leave us a review on wherever you're listening to this, wherever you love to listen to your podcast, and that goes really far for us as a whole. So thanks so much, and we'll see you next time. Bye, friends.